You may have heard the expression, if you can't see the sucker at the table, then the sucker is you. Well, just hang with me for the next few minutes and I promise to sharpen your sucker radar. Hi, I'm Kobie, and in this video, I'll be teaching you the top 12 poker tells that every player must know. Did you know that the way you're dressing may even be costing you money? Find out why in our number one tell.
That's hot.
Poker tells are the gathering of information through observation of your opponent's patterns and or tendencies. Poker tells are a huge aspect of the game of poker, an aspect that is at many times overlooked and undervalued by players such as those who learn to play the game online. The tells that you pick up from the other players during the course of the game will at many times mean the difference between winning and losing. And conversely, the tells that you give off to your opponent during the game are what define you as a bad, good, or great player. The toughest players in the world make it extremely hard for their opponents to gather solid, dependable information on them. This is ultimately where you want your game to be. So here are the top 12 poker tells that every player must know. Number 1, demeanor. Does your opponent appear to be new to the game of poker? Is he fumbling his chips or constantly having to be reminded it is his turn to act? Or does he appear to be a seasoned player who knows the lingo and is wearing a full tilt jacket? Keep an eye out for anything that will give you an idea of their experience level. If they look like a real deal player, then tread lightly when getting involved in pots with them. Number 2, a shaking hand. If the opponent's hands are shaking vigorously, that is a sign of intense worry. And if you are given the opportunity, pounce on them. Number 3, leaning forward or backward. Leaning forward suddenly after seeing a flop, for instance, means that your opponent is interested in what has come out. Look out, because for sure they got a piece of the flop and will certainly continue in the hand. On the flip side, if you notice your opponent slouching back in their seat and looking disinterested, it's for a reason. Number 4, the chip stack glance. A real easy to spot tell is the chip glance. For instance, in a 7-card stud game, your opponent is dealt a card and you see them immediately look at their chips. This is a sign that they like what they see and are planning on making a bet. Number 5, your opponent acts strong or weak. Typically, the rule of thumb is when a player acts strong, they are weak. And conversely, when they act weak, they are very strong. In human nature, this has been the case since the sands of time, and I am guessing it will continue to be the case. Number 6, chip placement. Players subconsciously tend to place their chips out on the table when making a bet, close to them when they feel they are going to win the hand, and they place them further away when they have a weaker hand. So be on the lookout for that. Number 7, heavy breathing or holding breath. If your opponent makes a bet and then sits as still as a statue, so still that they have even stopped breathing, then they are bluffing big time. Go after them. If they are breathing heavily, that may also be a sign of stress because they are not feeling too comfortable about the situation they are in. This is another key sign of a bluff. Number 8, staring off into space. If you find your opponent staring off into space and not seeming to take much interest in the hand, let's just say it's for a reason. They do not have a hand worth playing and are planning on folding. This is why it's beneficial to study the players around the table as they look at their cards initially. This could assist you in stealing a pot or two. Number 9, rechecking holdings. You're in the middle of a hand and you see your opponent checks his hold cards again after the flop comes out in your Omaha game. This means that his hand is not the nuts, because if they were, there's no way he would have forgotten what cards he was holding. People who have the nuts do not tend to look again and again at their cards. because they are afraid of scaring off the opponent who they desperately want to stay in the game. Number 10. Check raising. The dreaded check raise is usually only performed when someone really has the goods. Unless you are in the company of an extremely seasoned player who is capable of making such plays with nothing, you will have to determine whether your opponent is that brash or not. Number 11. The long raise. When your opponent seems to take a long time to act and seems to be contemplating how much to bet, then that means that they have a strong hand and are worried about betting too much and scaring you away. On the flip side, if they act quickly, they are probably on a bluff. Last but not least, number 12. Talking gibberish. Try to talk to a player if they are the talkative type, while you're in the hand with them heads up. After a bluff, a player will tend to want to talk like they normally do, but will be worried that their talk will give away their bluff. So their brain gets twisted in a pickle, and they will at times say something that makes absolutely no sense. That is when you nail them and make them pay for their incompetence.
This is poker!
Just keep in mind that any of these basic tells can be faked to give off false information and trick opponents. You have to determine whether your opponents are the type of people who are crafty enough to do such a thing or not. Then go with your gut, or stay away if you can't get a solid read on them. There are an endless list of tells that can give off information about your opponents, which can be found in countless pieces of literature online. I am here to let you know that you do not need to know everything there is to know about poker tells. These are the only 12 that you need to know to make life a whole lot harder on the competition. However, there is one key to mastering the art of the poker tell, and I can teach you this technique in about 5 minutes in the must-see video found in Pro Pair Poker University entitled Pro Reads. This is next level stuff that will improve your game by leaps and bounds. At Pro Pair Poker University, you can find this one-of-a-kind training and tons more that will keep you light years ahead of the competition. Become a member today so you can get in the game and stay in the game with Pro Pair Poker.